This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joire.
Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joire, and today is Monday, September 25th, 2017, and my guest is the awesome Matt Swider. Hey, Matt, how's it going?
It's going really well. How you doing?
Good. How are things on your end with I saw you were on TV the other day. I guess it was the stock exchange.
Yeah, I was on Cheddar, and then I was on Sirius XM. So
you do a lot of that, right?
Yeah, I'm getting the TechRadar name out there.
Get the TechRadar name out there. So yes, that's where you can find Matt's musings and writings. And Matt, just like me, is a phone person, which means we're talking about phones today. Just so you know, there'll be a bit of background noise throughout this podcast because we have plumbers in our house today fixing our plumbing. This wasn't planned, but you know, sometimes you just have to roll with the flow. Literally the flow. Did you get it?
No.
Yes.
See?
Okay. See? This is the dorkiness. It's coming out. So, you know, there's a couple of news items I wanted to kind of cover, and one of them is the Google HTC news, and then the other one is the Moto X4 Android One Fine news. But I also know you have an iPhone 8. Actually, you have two. You have the 8 Plus as well, don't you?
I do have the 8 Plus. That's the one I bought. And
so I definitely want to hear your take on that. But, you know, I also would love to hear your take on kind of like the midsummer or late summer, I guess. It is now fall officially. The late summer flagships, the V30, the Note 8. Have you had a chance to play with those?
Yes, all of them, all the above.
Awesome. So yeah, let's talk about phones, and let's get started with that crazy Google news from last week. It actually happened the same day as I was recording the podcast with Vlad Savov, but we didn't really feel like talking about it because we just had an agenda at the time, and it was pretty packed already. So what's your takeaway? What does this mean in your opinion?
Well, with the Pixel, I felt like Google was becoming more and more like Apple. They were offering a product like Apple. They were just trying to appeal to those iPhone users that have been cagey about joining up with Android. And this is just another way for Google to say they've kept using this excuse that they are only a software company whenever they do something bad at hardware. You know, for example, whenever you talk to them about Google Glass, they were like, well, you know, we're new to hardware, and they've been saying that for years, which is
it's kind of getting a bit old now, right? I guess it's a broken record at this point.
So they are now, you know, they have a team that does hardware, you know, just discounting Motorola for a little while they were under the Google umbrella. They now have, you know, a team that does hardware, even more so than they have in years past. So they have no more excuses, and this Google Pixel 2 and the Google Pixel 2 XL, whatever they decide to call it, will have to be even flashier, even better, and hopefully it's a good sign that they have something to compete with Apple and even Samsung.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And we're going to talk about the upcoming Pixels because there's an event on October 4th, which is pretty much now all but confirmed. And, you know, we're seeing some rumors of even a new Pixel laptop, which has me really excited because I really love my Pixel Chromebook laptops. And then, you know, what is it going to be called? Is it going to be Pixel 2 and Pixel 2 XL? Or is it going to be Pixel 2 and Pixel XL 2?
Right, that the naming convention is a little odd, but
what do you think?
I think it's going to be the former. I think they're just going to stick the 2 on the back of it, or they could go with something radically new. They could go with the Pixel 2X or 10. Who knows?
Oh my God, that would be wrong. 2X. Oh God, double X, triple X.
You got to compete with Apple on that front if they're releasing something with a 10. Who knows what's going to happen? Is Samsung next year? Are they going to really release the Samsung Galaxy S9? You know, just be one number inferior? That's not like them. They usually like getting one up.
It's like they opened Pandora's box with this naming convention. Apple messed with everybody, including themselves, in my opinion. This should have been called the iPhone 7S and 7S Plus, not the 8 and 8 Plus.
What's the third one, Gal?
Well, Pro, of course.
Oh, okay. I see it.
See, to me, actually, let me rewind. I think for this year, they should have just called them iPhone 7s and 7s Plus, and then they could have called the. I can understand iPhone 10 because of the X, because like OS 10 X, and it's kind of like an Apple tradition. And by calling it X, they can say, well, like 10, but writing it out as X, they could say, well, that's not really, it's not. It's just the 10th anniversary iPhone.
Yeah.
Right. And then continue the numbering next year for 8. But here's what I really think they should do. And I don't understand why they didn't do right off the bat this year. Is like you're talking about a phone that it should just be called the iPhone, no matter what. And then the better, newer one should be the iPhone Pro or the iPhone, I don't know, the iPhone something else. But the point is, look at the MacBook, right? You don't say, I have a MacBook 4. You say, I have a MacBook. And then if you really get in the details, you say, I have a MacBook like mid 2011, right?
But that's so awkward. I don't know.
But it doesn't matter because people don't say that. Only tech journalists say mid 2011. Right. So for the average person, why not just say, I have an iPhone? And if people ask, say, it's last year's or it's this year's or the latest, that's good enough. I don't even know why they need numbers.
It takes too much time to say. Like, oh, when'd you get it? Oh, it's like 4 years old. Like, people don't know. They're unsure.
But they do that with every other Mac. When do you, like, I have an iMac. If I tell you I have an iMac, well, it could be a Bondi Blue 1999 iMac.
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying? No, nobody questions and gets too worried about that. So why don't we do that with iPhone? It's been a decade of iPhones. I think it's time to move on.
I think when they call tech support and they ask them which Mac they have, they're like, I don't know. But they know if they have an iPhone SE or a 5 or a 5S or a 6. So that helps.
I get it.
It also sets us up for the joke because everybody keeps asking me, what about the iPhone 9? Where's that? And it just sets me up for the joke because 7, 8, 9. That's so easy.
Oh, yeah. I agree. Look, the 9 is never going to happen now for sure. But I still think that next year they should just call them iPhone, iPhone Plus, and iPhone Pro or iPhone Air. You know, it's thin, it's light, it's beautiful. And,
but do we want a thinner phone? Because I feel like they can't call a new iPhone the iPhone Air unless it's thinner. But I don't think a lot of people want a thinner phone. I think they want more battery life. They would rather sacrifice that thinness.
Oh, I agree with you. Life. No, I don't. I'm not actually literally implying that the iPhone Air would be thinner necessarily by much. I'm just saying that it's light and because it's entirely screen, almost. I'm pretty sure the cutout will stick around for a while because it's a great branding feature for them, right? Because they're losing that kind of design that defined the front of their phone by going to this full screen design, right? So I needed something, and I think that this slit edge, whatever you want to call it, this cutout is actually pretty iconic already, and the phone hasn't even been released yet. Yeah, it's funny they don't have that. They don't have that home button anymore, so that iconic design feature is gone. So they replace it with another. We'll see what how people gravitate towards it or not. I've heard a lot of people want the iPhone 8. Because they're either afraid of face unlock or Face ID, or they don't get it. They don't get the price, and those are the two reasons I wouldn't shy away from the iPhone 10. I would shy away from it because it's not available. That is the one reason I would go with the iPhone 8. Because if it's not going to be available till some people are saying spring 2018, that is going to throw people's contracts into just this whirlwind of like, what do I do? Do I get an iPhone now or do I wait several months with a 6? Because a lot of people are upgrading from the iPhone 6. So that puts them in a predicament. And those people may go for the iPhone 8 during Christmas time. Yeah, but those people are fools anyway. I'm sorry, but like there is only one iPhone you should be buying this year. I'm not going to recommend the iPhone 8. I mean, I actually, I'm as I'm saying that, I'm realizing that I'm totally full of crap because I will recommend the iPhone 8. I recommend iPhones to everyone all the time because I think it's a phenomenal smartphone platform for the normal person. Yeah. And as such, I should recommend the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus. I'm just saying that for our kind of audience that's listening to this podcast, and us kind of people, the tech nerd, silliness that we are, there's no way I can recommend anything but the iPhone 10 because it is finally the first since arguably the iPhone 5S, where Touch ID introduced a working fingerprint reader, and working is the emphasis. It's the first phone where Apple's truly innovating since then. And I would argue that before that, the iPhone 4, because of Retina display, and it's absolutely, to this day, I think the best design they ever did, was really innovating because it basically brought jewelry into our pockets. There wasn't any phone back then that could really compete in terms of fit and finish. And now it's the norm. I mean, you look at Samsung, all their phones are glass on two sides and, sandwich of metal in the middle, beautifully, exquisitely made. So it took that long, but they created something there. And so to me, that's why I think the iPhone 10 is a milestone for Apple. It's finally Apple playing in the same league as its competitors, at least on the hardware front.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's definitely a step up from, it's the change that we finally have been waiting for. And yeah, I'm interested in seeing if people, the average people gravitate towards it, or if it's just...
I don't think they will. I think you're right that the biggest issue for them is going to be the upgrade cycle and the availability. Cost, I don't think, is as big of an issue because a lot of people buy iPhone Pluses fully loaded, like largest amount of storage without skipping a beat. And they're $50 shy of an iPhone 10 at that point. So I think they don't care. And especially with contract and renewals, you can get some really good deals. Sure, it's expensive, but so is the Note. And honestly, there's a certain cachet to making an expensive phone. It makes it more exclusive. And I think this is an economic trend we're going to see. We're going to start seeing some really expensive high-end phones out there. It needs to happen because you can't distinguish on features much anymore. You can't distinguish on design much anymore. So let's distinguish on price. I think that's fair.
I think that you're right. That Note 8 is $930. So it's not too far off from what the iPhone costs, the iPhone 10.
Yeah. So let's go back to the initial discussion, Google and HTC. And the reason I'm happy we talked about the iPhone, and we should definitely talk about it some more. I would love to hear your thoughts on actually using that iPhone 8 because I haven't. But I want to talk about this in the context of this announcement. It absolutely makes perfect sense for me that Google would acquire the Pixel division of HTC. It's a pretty decent price too, $1.1 billion. I don't think that's too much in this day and age of billions thrown around for nothing. But at the same time, it's a bit odd. It's going to be a bit awkward because the Pixel 2 XL, let's go with that naming convention, is going to be made by LG. And this announcement just happened. And only the Pixel 2 basic model, or like the smaller model, will be made by HTC this year. So I suppose this is more planting a seed for the future. I think from a PR perspective, I would have announced that after the Pixels were out. That's just the new ones. That's just me.
Yeah, I don't think it matters to that mainstream user, but you know what? It all depends on what that phone looks like and how well it competes with everything else that's out there. Because, the leaks that we saw, we keep seeing them go back and forth. Is it going to have a lot of change to it? Is there just going to be one of them that has changes? And that is going to be, does it have any defining features for 2017?
Well, the rumors are, let's go over the rumors real quick, because we actually haven't talked about these Pixel 2 and Pixel 2 XL rumors on this podcast much. Number one, the regular Pixel 2 will supposedly have the squeeze function from HTC we've seen on the U11. But it's not an ultra-wide bezel-less, full screen front. And it has a single camera and no headphone jack. That's what we're hearing. The bigger one, the Pixel 2 XL, is made by LG, not HTC. Does not have the squeeze feature. Has a bezel-less, large, all-front screen, probably similar to the V30s, and has a single back camera with or without OIS. We don't know, and also no headphone jack. So the only reason I'm compelled by this phone right now, from the rumors, and let's not make any mistakes here. I'm going to buy or get the XL because I have an XL in my pocket from the previous gen, and it's the right size for me, and I love it. And for me, I'm all about large screen size on a small real estate. So I love the V30. And if it's anything like that, minus, as we said, the dual camera and the headphone jack, it's going to be in the right direction. But those two are big minuses. I mean, the V30's camera is top notch. The dual camera setup is awesome. And the headphone, especially the quad DAC HD audio, is, unmatched right now by any other device. So I'm a little butthurt that we're not going to have a headphone jack on the new Pixel, apparently, because that's to me is user hostile. I feel the same as Nilay at The Verge about this. This is a major, major problem in the industry, and I'm really glad that LG and Samsung at least are sticking with the headphone jack for the time being. And so, yeah, I mean, I think I'm only going to want the Pixel because it's running Android O, and I know it's, well, technically my Pixel's running Android O right now, but I'm just saying in terms of like getting the updates and having the latest and the greatest and that absolutely phenomenal Google experience. That's why I want a Pixel. But I'm going to be a bit annoyed with the lack of headphone jack, and a bit less annoyed, but still annoyed with the single camera, you know?
I agree. Do you have a good pair of AirPods or something similar?
I don't use wireless headphones and earphones. I believe they don't sound good enough.
Okay.
I have some. I don't use them. I will use an adapter. That's going to be life. I mean, there's nothing else I can do. Even in the car, I tend to connect via aux because I like the sound quality better. If you have a really good car system, it still sounds better. So, I'm old school. I got a lot of headphones that are really old and sound phenomenal, and earbuds that are really old and sound great. Some new ones that sound great. They're all wired. They all have a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. This thing we've had for years.
Yeah, well, you are a rare one in this industry because, so many people turn to the wireless headphones and they are either good or they're really bad. So I do like my AirPods. And yes.
Do you use them with Android though?
It works. I mean, I've gotten it to work just fine. I'm
sure it does, but is it optimal?
You know what? I really don't notice that.
Would you be happier with like an LG or Samsung or, any other big major Bluetooth brand set of earbuds than the AirPods for one specific reason or feature that AirPods don't give you on Android?
On Android, no, because it doesn't have, the W1 chip for that wireless connectivity, which I really like. All
the better functionality is because of iOS.
Exactly.
And that makes perfect sense. No, I get that. I'm just curious, right? Because, I mean, to me, what defines a good wireless experience is the aptX codec, especially the lossless aptX codec, and that's available on quite a few third-party Bluetooth headphones these days, and quite a few Bluetooth radios on phones these days, strangely only on Android. So here's the crazy thing. OS X or Mac OS supports aptX, yet iOS does not. So you don't get the best sound quality possible. Now, there is a lossless Apple codec that, as I believe, is baked into the implementation of the W1 chip, and I have no doubts that they use it. And it's probably awesome because Apple has a lot of chops with audio over the years. They've developed lots of good stuff. The problem is, to me, is that the AirPods are fundamentally flawed because the drivers are not good enough. So I need something of higher quality in terms of the drivers, but in the same form factor with the same advantages, and then I'll be interested.
Yeah,
I'm willing to pay $1,000 for that.
See, yeah, it's going to happen when they can make it not cost $1,000 because that is
clearly. Well, the AirPods are pretty expensive already, right? What, $200?
A little less than 200, but you know what? My dad has a pair for got them for Christmas last year, and he said he loves them still.
Of course, they are great.
They're great. You're listening to a podcast, for example, around your apartment or your house, like I do, and I don't have to take them off even if I'm like, oh, I need to make some dinner, so I make some dinner. But they're just, the freedom that they present is great. Yes, you can have a pair of Bluetooth cans on your ears, but they get sweaty. They're big. These are they just fit into your ears, and you almost forget you're wearing them. So I really
you
like
have a
feature.
pair of TechRadar branded ones, don't you?
I do. The Astro A38 headphones. They're
it's a cheat though, yeah.
They have tags for clans and different gaming functions like that. But I put the TechRadar brand on there, and that has become my staple for the last 4 years.
I love it. I think you've really done a good job at branding there.
Thank you.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, the point I'm making is that here's how we better served with these devices that don't have headphone jack. And there's a lot of them that are really great phones today without headphone jack. The iPhones, of course, and then there is the HTC U11, which I think is the quintessential non-headphone jack phone that I would recommend to people because it is a great phone. What I really want is a high quality Bluetooth receiver about the size of a smartwatch. And there are a few of them out there that supports aptX lossless, so that it works on Android phones, supports the Apple lossless for iPhones, and lets me plug any standard headphone into. Mm-hmm. And then I can just clip it on or put it in my pocket, and I don't need a headphone adapter anymore, and I get the sound quality I want, and I use the headphones I want.
But what about
problem solved?
What about all the courage that it takes? You won't have courage in your phone.
Nah, I don't need it. I mean, look, I get it. A lot of people don't care, and that's cool. I'm just saying, for me, if I look as a Pixel user who likes headphones,
mm-hmm.
A wired connection, this is a big loss to me. And that's why, yes, the V30 is not running stock Android and is running LG Skin. But with the right launcher, I don't keep my phones really long enough to worry about software updates. So maybe if you're like me and you want the best sound quality and you don't worry too much about updates because you buy a new phone every 6 months or whatever, then maybe go get a V30 instead of the Pixel 2. Whereas last year I couldn't say that because the Pixel today to this day the Pixel camera is still absolutely amazing, probably the best.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
We'll see what happens. I'm a bit worried that with the second edition of the Pixel, the camera is not going to take, it's not going to be a huge improvement in the same way as, Galaxy S7 to Galaxy S8 wasn't a huge improvement. It didn't need it, right? The same way as the iPhone 7 to the iPhone 8 is an improvement from everything I've read, but not like a mind-blowing improvement. So, let's talk about that. How do you feel about this iPhone 8 camera compared to a 7? Is it better?
Yes, but especially with that S7 to S8 on the Samsung side, you have to really dig deep. It's the same thing here. From the iPhone 7 or 7 Plus to the iPhone 8 Plus, you have to actually look at the quality side by side, and you'll say, okay, my photos are better. They are better looking, because they said this in the keynote that the camera has been redesigned, and also the A11 Bionic processor, that chipset that they have, does help out. That thing's insane. It is. And the fact that it's basically doing multi-frame imaging, just like the Pixel does, same concept there, where it's taking a picture even before it's already analyzing the picture and kind of setting up your shot even before you hit the shutter button. That stuff is really amazing. They don't get into the technical details in the keynote, but it really gets people like us to, really interested in these phones and saying, okay, they did redesign that camera. But a lot of people miss that stuff. And I feel like there are differences in the photos. There's less noise, but it's going to take either a trained eye to see that or a side-by-side comparison, kind of like you see two TVs in the store. You really need that set up. You need to I built a little rig, and you can fit two phones in there and you take a picture side-by-side of the same thing. And that's really the only way to tell the differences between the two phones. It's not like I've been taking an iPhone 1 around and the original iPhone and an iPhone 7 Plus around to see the differences. And
I bet you that's pretty impressive, right?
It's so stark. I like going up to people and they're like, oh, you have the iPhone 1. I'm like, yeah, you want to take a selfie? And so we start to pose for a selfie, and I just hang there for a second until they realize, wait, that thing doesn't have a front-facing camera, because it was only on the iPhone 4 that it had a front-facing camera. So that's a fun little game, but it makes you realize how far we've come in 10 years between the two, or the 10 years of phones. So I think if you have a side-by-side comparison, you'll also be able to do portrait lighting. So that is one difference. And that is actually better than you would think it is. It's not just lighting effects. It also darkens the background. That stuff is pretty neat. And I only expect that to get better, because what Apple's doing is they're not just trying to replace the phone in your pocket. It's, the best camera that you have with you is, the one in your pocket. They're trying to replace that DSLR that we're still lugging around.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't know anybody who does lug around DSLR unless they're a professional or a pretty serious amateur. They know how to use it. I think people stopped carrying around. Like, there was this whole market of entry-level DSLRs like the Rebels that people would buy, that I think that's gone now. That's been gone for a few years.
Well, you know what's
because
replaced it?
Most people use their phones,
Yes. You know what's replaced it for me?
Because phones have finally, I mean, I'd say in the last 2 years, starting with the iPhone 6S probably, even the 6, and then the Galaxy starting with the 6 and S6, S7, now S8, Note 5, the ill-fated Note 7 and the Note 8. All of these have finally gotten to, and the Pixel, and then LG on their own, and all these cameras have gotten so good that most people feel they don't even need, they certainly don't need a point and shoot. They don't even need like an entry-level DSLR. I've always been a big proponent of mirrorless APS-C and Micro Four Thirds cameras over the entry-level DSLRs myself, right? I've always said, look, if you don't want to lug something around that's a Nikon or Canon full DSLR with big lenses, get a mirrorless camera with removable lenses, or get a super high-end point-and-shoot like the RX100 series from Sony, because those are, generally significantly superior to a phone. But that's really shrinking rapidly today.
That's what I carry around, is that Sony RX100 Mark V with the flip-out screen, and you could take your selfies with that, and it looks so much better than any phone that's out there. As much as we've closed the gap from mobile devices to
I mean, you and I
still
notice and care, but I think the average person, just doing their thing and like, just needing a quick selfie are fantastically well served by that.
Yeah.
And I really don't think they need to lug around a Rebel or anything. The Rebels are kind of boring in my opinion. They're not that good, like, as I said, get a mirrorless or an RX100. You're better off at that point.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Now, of course, there's a whole new class of camera now that is like a full frame mirrorless, like the Alpha 7, the A7 from Sony, which I think are redefining the portability of a full-on DSLR type experience, but without the reflex part, right? And to me, that's the future. That's where we're going.
They need to come out with a flip-out screen on their higher-end cameras.
Like
I know it sounds ridiculous, but people like to set up shots. They like to take, pictures of themselves with groups, selfies. I know it's for high-end users, but that's what people are taking. Even vloggers like Casey Neistat, like, people who do that for a living, they love the Sony cameras, but Canon offers that screen that flips out to the side, and that's really necessary. The Sony, if you really want that, they told me their answer to that was, well, here's the RX100 and it does that, and it's not on the same
not
level,
quite
guys.
In the same league, I know, absolutely.
Right.
So back to this HTC Google thing. For me, the takeaway is good for HTC. I think they need the influx of cash. I hope this is not the end of their phone business as an independent phone manufacturer. I hope that Google takes better use of that resource they just purchased than they did with Moto.
Yes.
Arguably, I think Moto came out of this Google phase, whatever you want to call it, pretty well off, right? In the sense that they learned a lot about making good phones with lightweight software. I mean, we have an entire generation this year of phenomenal Moto phones, and maybe we can segue into the X4 and Fi and Android One. But the point is that they sold it, and they kept the patents, and it was a lot of money lost. And Lenovo's got them now, and it seems to me that the transition for Moto like a positive transition was their acquisition by Google. They made some great phones after that, and in my opinion, their phones before that were kind of meh. And now they still make great phones, even though they're no longer part of Google. So I kind of question this little chapter. But a few years have passed, and the industry is very different than when it was, back then, right? So I think as a result, I think this could be really good for Google. Definitely going to be good for Google to get HTC expertise, but it could really be good for HTC. As long as I feel like, I'd be really disappointed if they lost their core phone business, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they come out with a good flagship. Do you think that's going to
happen? Do you think we're just going to be Vive and then, then it's going to be Google's HTC partnership and we're never going to see a U11 again?
They come out with a good flagship or two, a variant of that every year. It's the question of, are they going to sell enough to recoup from their spending costs? And with so many players in the field, I think it's going to be really difficult for them. You have companies like ZTE and Huawei and a bunch of other Chinese companies. OnePlus is another example that are kind of marketing better than they are. And I saw a bunch of Honor phones this past Christmas. People were buying the Honor 8, that reflective blue phone that was kind of stylish and in, more so than other any HTC phone that I saw. So they're going to have problems competing on the top end, and those mid-range but very comparable specs Chinese phones on the lower end. So they get caught somewhere in the middle. I don't know if they can survive that. So doing something new like VR might be their best bet to survival, and selling off their phone assets to Google is a wise decision right there.
It's true, but it's a sad chapter, right? It's like when Nokia stopped making phones, right? Essentially they became Microsoft branded. Although now they're back with the Nokia 8 and they have a whole bunch of new phones that are back for that. I mean, as a separate brand, as part of TCL. Not TCL, sorry, what am I saying? As part of this new company out of Finland that is, partnering with a Chinese manufacturer.
Right.
I was thinking of BlackBerry for a second there. And of course, Palm. There's rumors of a TCL Palm thing going on there. But look, the reality for me is that if we lose this, you're going to say the average person won't care, and I totally agree. But I think, deep inside, it'll feel like a void to me. Because frankly, look, this is the problem. And this is why this is my big caveat about this HTC Google thing. It's that ultimately, every Nexus and device I've ever had, other than the Nexus 6P, which was made by Huawei. And as we know, Huawei is a freaking powerhouse. Mm-hmm. They are probably one of the top 3 with Apple and Samsung in terms of tech right out there right now at making phones. Like they have ways to go in their marketing, and of course their market penetration in the US and their software is still a little wonky, but the hardware that they create and their Kirin processors and everything is freaking out of this world in terms of performance. I'm not just talking chips, I'm talking about their camera subsystems with Leica, I'm talking about all kinds of things. I mean, Huawei is awesome. So my thing is, all the phones that the Nexuses I've liked, other than the 6P, and of course the Pixel made by HTC, the Pixel XL, have been the LG ones. The Nexus 4, the Nexus 5. I wasn't a big fan of the Nexus 6. And then I tried the 5X, and it was okay.
Yeah.
It just felt like they went a little cheap in terms of specs for the sake of being cheap. But my point is, to me, this is the thing. We're going to get a Pixel 2 XL from LG, essentially. And it's going to be better than anything HTC could have made this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's like, this is a bit weird, this Google HTC thing, because honestly, if you look at the Pixel XL and you take away the great camera, the current Pixel XL, you take away the great camera and the upgradability and the Android O and all that, what are you left with? You're left with a kind of an ugly, boring phone, to be honest with you.
Right, that one that could have released in 2016, besides the internal specs, but the design-wise. And this may be a play for, next year. They may be shoring up that team for next year's design. So this could be a longer play.
They're going to have to throw some serious resources into it for HTC to really be able to take on our level of expectations when we have Samsung and Huawei and Apple out there doing what they're doing. That's all I'm saying. Like, you can't just rely on a good camera and a good software experience. The hardware has to hit the spot. It needs to be water resistant. It needs to, have a full-on edgeless display. I mean, it needs to be up there, especially if they want to establish the brand Pixel as like a technologically leading brand and charge for it. Because as you know, the Pixels weren't cheap phones last year.
Right. And the other thing is that camera is really going to be a mystery for me. From the leaks, it looks like it's changed. So we'll see what quality-wise, if it doesn't have a dual lens camera, what it's going to look like.
My only request, honestly, is keep everything you're doing and continue developing that software photography awesomeness you're doing, Google, but give us OIS. And
Yes.
And you're going to say, why? Well, I'm glad you're on board, because a lot of people are saying, but Miriam, have you not seen the pictures? We don't need OIS. I'm like, I have proof on my camera roll, on my Pixel XL, that I need OIS.
Right.
I have a few photos I've taken where the iPhone, the Galaxies, the LG phones nailed the shot, and my Pixel couldn't get a clear shot because it couldn't stabilize optically.
Right, and if you go in low light, it's even worse because it has a harder time focusing. Yeah, I've
Totally.
experienced that as well, and that may be the nitty gritty, and we may be getting very into it. But the average person does go into a bar or restaurant, and has low light, and they're going to have the same problem. So they may not be examining it as closely, but if they get into that random situation, they're not going to have as good of a photo. And I constantly look at people's photos all the time on Facebook, and I say, if only they didn't have a camera that's 2 or 3 years old, they would have had a really nice shot. And yet, they walk away with memories that are kind of tarnished and blurry.
Yeah, true. And then the other thing, is obviously there's rumors of a Pixel Book, which would be a laptop to replace the original 2 Pixel laptops that were really high-end Chromebooks, which, again, nobody bought, but because I got review units to play with, I have to tell you were the best Chromebooks I ever used, and probably will continue to be the best Chromebooks we ever use, but that nobody will buy, because who's going to buy a Chromebook for over $1,000, right?
It's expensive.
But at the same time, if it's an awesome experience, why not? I mean, again, define your brand as a premium brand is not a bad move. And so far, the Pixel brand has been about premium. Even the previous Pixel devices, like the Pixel C tablet, were pretty damn premium and sold as such. So I'm excited. I'm also excited about this Google Home Mini player, or whatever it's going to be called. Basically, the equivalent to an Echo Dot. I love the Echo Dot. I have a couple of them, and I find that at that price, I don't care. It's not like a big investment. I just use it. I mostly use it for home automation to turn on and off lights and stuff.
Of all the things, I am actually excited by that, because I feel like it could be the Chromecast of these speakers, these smart speakers, because it's a $50 purchase. Everybody's going to buy a smart speaker that costs $50 during Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And I think people are just going to snatch those up. They may not be available on Amazon, like you would think they would be. But if you go to the Best Buy and they have them available, it's going to be an easy purchase that people throw in their carts because, I heard a smart speaker is really cool. I heard it could do this, that, and the other, and it's a Google brand, and it's $50. So it's going to be an easy purchase. It's Chromecast all over again.
For sure, but it still doesn't have the marketing clout to the average common person and the brand recognition of Echo.
No, it doesn't. And I don't even know if Echo has that, that kind of, they've heard of it. They heard of Alexa. But if they get the next best thing, I'm sure they'll be carrying it out of the stores, especially if it's available in stores. Whereas, Amazon Alexa is available in stores, but their primary driver is on Amazon. So we'll see how well Amazon can continue to market Alexa and all their Echo speakers. So I'm really hoping that in the coming days, they'll announce another Echo just to kind of replace the flagship that they've had.
Right. Are you going to be coming to this Google event?
That is a good question. I'm probably going to send, we're looking to send Cameron Faulkner, who is, I'm the senior mobile editor. He's the mobile editor. I work with him in New York. I just moved from LA to New York City, so I get to work with him every day. So he has been carrying a Pixel in his pocket as his daily driver every day.
Right.
So I am sending him on his first mission alone, and I'm really excited for him. I've wanted him to go for the past 6 months, to even before I moved out to New York. I was like, this is his thing. He's worked really hard on it, so I'm really happy that he can go out there and kind of spearhead this one. So we have an event planned based on all the rumors of what we expect, and we will be tackling it on TechRadar. So I'll be staying at home. That next big event that I'll be at is I think ZTE has an Axon event that's happening in New York City. Oh. So I
had no idea. They never invite me to anything. I don't know what their problem is.
Well, the invite is public, so
I will. Oh, I see. I will ping them. I mean, I'm not going to go to New York City just for that, but you're already there. So,
I am. I am there nowadays, so I will be in the vicinity. So I'll be prepping for that. That'll be my next big event. But that ends. Then the iPhone 10 pre-orders that happen. On the 27th
I'm definitely going to buy one and pre-order one.
You should. And the biggest tip I have.
Yeah, I am, because I really do feel it's the most important iPhone in like 5 years. So yeah. But here's the thing. What's that?
Oh, the biggest tip I have for people is, if you're trying to pre-order, download the iPad app and the iOS app on your iPhone for the Apple Store, because the site will come back slower than the apps do. So every year we kind of notice that. True. And if you have to be
good tip.
You have to be there on minute one to really get that, or else you're going to be in November or later November, December, even next year until the delivery date is available. So definitely download those apps ahead of time at 3 a.m. or midnight, depending on your time zone.
You heard it here from the guru himself, kids. Get yourself an iOS device, even an old one. Put that app on there and get going. Get cracking. Like Harry McCracken, but without the Harry part, I guess. I don't know what I'm talking about. So anyway, as going back to what we were just talking about with the Pixels, I'm excited. Then the next thing is the Mate 10, or rumors anyway. We're pretty sure it's going to be the Mate 10. It's going to be announced at an event sometime mid-October, and I was invited, but it's far away, so I'm getting briefed here in San Francisco, so stay tuned for that. And then until then, there is the Moto X4 Android One with Fi device that is going to be come available. I'm not sure if this is going to be kind of showcased by Google alongside the Pixels at the Pixel event or what, but it's official, it's out. It's not out, you can't get it, but it's been announced is what I mean. And I'm actually really excited to get my hands on one, because I haven't actually played with an Android One device, and more importantly, Fi is pretty awesome. And until now, you had to have a Nexus or Pixel for Fi. So
yeah,
what do you think of that phone? And it looks like a flagship because it's an X series, even though spec-wise it's maybe not quite a flagship, but it's not quite as big as the Z series, because it's it doesn't have the removable modular back stuff, but it has dual camera and a bunch of other cool things. So I think it's gonna be interesting.
I definitely agree with that. Fi is probably one of the more interesting things about it, just because I am really interested in seeing what Google does as basically their own cell phone network. I know they run off the backs of T-Mobile and Sprint and other carriers around the world, but the amount they charge and the rollover data is just fascinating. How it's exactly what consumers want, and the plans are so confusing on AT&T and Verizon, T-Mobile, and Sprint that people get locked into contracts. They don't know what's happening. This is just so simple.
I'm not sure you can say that about T-Mobile. There's only one plan. It's T-Mobile One, and then you're not locked into anything. So I don't see the problem.
It's not as confusing there. They still make you pay $30 a month plus $270 down or something of the sorts for phones. So it's getting a little more complex than it needs to be. But buying your phone outright is definitely just an easier. I think people are starting to get that these phones don't cost $199 like they used to. That confused the hell out of people. But
yeah, I mean, we've been only telling them for years now that they've been getting their phones subsidized and they should buy their terminals at front,
right,
at full cost. But hey, they're not listening to us or anything.
No, that $650 phone it always shocks people when they break their phone and they go in to buy another phone and they think, okay, I'm buying another $200 phone and it's $650, and they're like, what? That's crazy. I have to wait this entire period. I have a broken phone. And that's when it hit them that these phones cost a lot more money than they ever put down initially. But no one realized it for years. I think they're starting to get that. And that's a nice thing. And it's all T-Mobile's, it's their fault in a very good way. It's their doing that they kind of spurred AT&T and the other companies to kind of do, to kind of follow in their lead. They don't quite do it yet. But they, like, my rollover data on AT&T rolls over for 1 month, but then it evaporates. With T-Mobile, it continuously rolls over. So
I mean, look, we have to give T-Mobile major props for educating the consumers and giving them options that might not be optimal for them necessarily because coverage is still spotty in some places, but at least they have the best data speeds in the country. They have the best plans, in my opinion, short of like going with something like Fi, which requires very specific devices.
Yes,
and that's the biggest caveat. They have great roaming plans that are free, and you can add on to that. They have for international travel, which I do a lot. They have, a great CEO. He's a lot of fun, and they've really democratized the concept of decoupling the device from the cost of your plan and not making you pay more for a device you don't have when you bring your own. All this good stuff, and really educating people. And now you're getting free Netflix. I don't want to sound like a fangirl, but as a customer for 17 years since it was called VoiceStream, I can't say I'm unhappy. Otherwise, I would have switched by now.
Yeah, I think it depends on your area and what the signal strength is, because I've known people who switched over and switched back. But at the same time, if you walk into a T-Mobile store, especially in any city, they're always buzzing. And the Sprint store, that AT&T store, not so much these days.
Not so much.
Yeah, but there's people who couldn't afford a phone before who are now able to afford a phone. Sometimes they have to put money down if they don't have good credit, but those people just couldn't buy a phone. They couldn't afford that contract before, and now they can, and that's just a really positive thing for a lot of people.
It's funny. I had a little anecdote I need to share with you guys. Is I had a friend of mine text me last night actually saying, hey, my kid is now, I don't know, 7, 8 years old. And I'm thinking, or maybe a little older, maybe almost a teenager. And I'm thinking of getting him his first phone. And what do you recommend? And, I immediately said Moto X4, right? Because you can buy it for $99 on Amazon right now, unlocked. So, it's ad subsidized, but whatever. It's an amazing phone for $99. I mean, it's great. So, I mean, even I could live with it. That's how good it is. He said, well, no. I need a dumb phone. I need like a feature phone, a flip phone. I don't want to give him, apps and internet access. And I'm on AT&T, and what do you recommend? And I'm like, what is this, 2007?
Yeah.
Like I said, no, dude, like seriously, like look at the prices. So I went to AT&T with him. Like, I mean, we talked to each other on texting, and I went to the website and I looked, and there's an LG non-LTE flip phone for $49.99. And there's a generic, who knows who makes it, AT&T branded phone, the Flip 2, for $59.99. And those are upfront costs on those. And that one's got LTE, but it's a dumb phone. And both of them have abysmal specs, barely have Bluetooth, basically. Crappy cameras for sure. And I'm like, dude, you can go to Amazon right now, and for $39 unlocked, you can buy a really crappy blue Android phone.
Yeah.
Now, it's really crappy. I would not recommend it. But, LG sold a $10 smartphone through Walmart as a prepaid. It was a super bare bones Android, but it had GPS, it had Wi-Fi, I think it was called the LG Sunrise. Look it up. And then, I did okay. I said, look, let's do diligence here. We're not going to recommend a $39 blue phone. It's going to be crap. But I said like $99, so just $40 more than this crappy flip 2, phone will give you a full-on Android experience, and you can limit with parental controls what they do on that.
Yeah.
Like, why don't you get that instead?
Yeah.
And their mind was blown. They were like, I had no idea it'd gotten to this. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, when I'm recommending the E4, I'm not telling you like it's good enough for the money. I'm saying like, this is a smartphone I could live with if it was the end of the world and it was the only phone that was still working. Okay.
It reminds me of. It reminds me of people trying to search for, like, with prisons, like, oh, you should give them a black and white TV, and it's like, hey, that's going to be more money. That's expensive. Like this is the same concept. It's like you're trying to get a cheap thing. You're trying to limit that experience, and yet you're living in days gone by where those things are not available anymore. Not the way you think they are. So
it just was an interesting kind of an anecdote for me. Anyway, the next thing I was going to say that since we're talking Android One, Xiaomi came out with an Android One phone called the A1, which will be sold, I believe, in India with, Google Play services and no skinning. And, Xiaomi makes some pretty awesome hardware. So I'm trying to get my hands on a review unit because I think this whole Android One renaissance, if you want to call it that, or second push because it, got pushed once before and it wasn't so successful, is interesting to me. And I want to see I want to play with these phones and see what they feel like,
Yeah, it's definitely going to be, that's like the huge market for them is India, and just emerging markets is where they're going to do well. They may do well elsewhere in like the developed world with people who want cheaper phones, but it's the primary driver is India, and every company's going after that, even Apple. So they all want to kind of appeal to that market, and we'll see who comes out with a bigger market share in like 5 to 10 years. That'll be really interesting. For
sure. Another couple of things I wanted to talk about and get your feedback and thoughts on. We've talked about a lot of stuff. It's been cool. The V30 LG flagship, I just want to add some, this has been an ongoing discussion. We've talked about it. This is the third week we're discussing it. The third week I have one in my hands. And I want to tell you guys that I finally got around to taking some photos in manual mode, full-on manual mode. Using the digital zoom of all things, believe it or not. I was at a performance and I was in the very back of the theater, like real theater, like, performance theater, not like a movie theater. I wouldn't record video or photos in a movie theater. And wow, all I have to say is that a lot of the issues I mentioned last week where I had some issues with low light autofocus were really caused by simply one thing, and that's, unfinished software, unfinished hardware. I'm using pre-release everything here. And if you manually focus and you do your manual settings, this phone just blew my freaking mind. I think we have a best camera phone winner in the absolute now again. That surpasses the Pixel and surpasses the U11 with the V30. I am absolutely convinced of that. Blew my mind. And despite 1 micron pixels, I mean, wow, LG, amazing. That f1.6 lens and the glass that's full glass is one fast and clear lens. It's incredible the amount of detail it captures.
Yeah, it's definitely. LG has focused on their camera for several years, and they're finally hitting all the right marks. I find it really interesting that they're doing something different than everybody else with the, they're doing the opposite of the telephoto lens. They're doing the wide angle lens. And it's just, there's 3 types of camera phones out there that are having the dual lens camera. It's, are they doing black and white plus color, the vivid color, and combining them? Are they doing the telephoto lens like Apple and Samsung are doing? Or is it like
and
LG?
OnePlus?
And OnePlus, and Motorola is doing a dual lens camera. Like
Motorola's doing a bit of both. So the Z2 Force, is black and white color like the Huawei's, and then the X4 is telephoto regular like the or wide angle regular like the LGs. I can't remember which one. But you're right. The big players, Apple and Samsung, are doing telephoto regular, and of course OnePlus kind of globbed onto that with a OnePlus 5. So it's an interesting strategy. To me, LG seems to be the only one doing the wide angle, unless I'm right. Or
no, I think you're right.
The Moto X is the X4 wide angle and normal.
I can't remember, but the LG is the only one that's out that I've tested that
That is out right now. Yeah.
Right.
Let's see what the Moto X4 brings. But ultimately, to me, the wide angle has been way more useful. Like a regular lens and a wide angle instead of regular plus zoom has been more useful to me. And again, the reason I brought up this V30 and how blown away I was because now they went back up to a 16 megapixel sensor, which means that, digital zoom is actually feasible. I was using 8 times zoom in these photos. Go to my Google Plus. You can see them on my Facebook, on my Twitter. I posted them 2 or 3 days ago. They're mind blowing for their quality, for the fact that I was zooming 8 times. And this is, tells me that, if you just do zooming 2 or 3 times, which is what the telephoto on the iPhone and the Samsung Note 8 give you, really, you for the LG, you don't really need, you don't really need it. Like, you don't need to have that separate camera. But the wide angle is an experience you can't get anywhere else. Like being really close to a car and wanting to take a shot of the entire car and there's a wall behind you, you have no other options than to use an LG phone to do that right now.
Yeah, I have a great shot of that exact picture of me in front of 2 other cars with 2 people behind me. They were kind of we were kind of taking a road trip, and the girl in the back was jumping, and then like it was the perfect LG. It was LG V10, so that first selfie camera, they had a dual lens camera actually in the front.
Oh yeah, it was cool.
I really missed that. I kind of wish they would go back to that and have an outstanding camera on the front in terms of it being wide angle, because a lot of people take selfies, so it just makes a lot of sense. So
here's a little thing you might not know, Matt, because it took me a while to realize this. It wasn't until I actually wrote a review of the V20 that I found this out. And the G6 has the same feature, and the V30 has the same feature. Right. These front lenses, the selfie lenses on these phones, are all wide angle.
Are they,
by default.
Are they as
They
wide?
restrict the angle in software, and there's a wide angle mode you can enable.
Okay. Is it as wide as the V10?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's odd then. Just because I thought that it was a defining feature of the V10, and I couldn't capture the same wide angle.
You have to enable it.
That's so odd.
Try it.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Cool.
They made it really easy on the V30, because the V30, if you go in the selfie cam, you have the 2 buttons on the top, the wide angle and narrow angle, just like on the back camera, and it switches between them. But on the V20 and the G6, it was a little more buried. I think the G6 now with the software updates has that feature as well.
I really do like the wide angle camera on LG's phones, but I do find the telephoto lens on Samsung and iPhone helpful, but I don't think it goes far enough. I think if it was a 3 times zoom, like what was at one time rumored for the Note 8, it would be a lot better. I went out to look at the Statue of Liberty from Governor's Island, and it got an okay picture, but I had to use digital zoom to get the photo,
the extra
that
mile,
I wanted.
right, basically.
Yeah, and it was like, if it was a 3 times zoom instead of a 2, I could have gotten that photo I wanted, but it didn't look like a big difference between the standard photo and the 2 times zoom. So I was looking for something that was a little tighter, went a little further with optical zoom. That may be the next step. That may be next year's phone. So for all we know, and it may be the iPhone 10.1 or whatever they want to call it, and the Samsung Galaxy Note 9. Yeah. So I think that's going to be an interesting thing. The ideal phone would have a bunch of cameras on back. That would be interesting. Telephoto, wide angle, standard, black and white.
Well, Qualcomm has announced that their next generation ISP, which will be available on whatever next Snapdragon beyond the 835 is, will support up to 3 rear cameras simultaneously. Hint, hint, hint.
Right. That's going to be groundbreaking.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Specifically, a monochrome and a color and a telephoto, which I think is a really good combo.
Yeah.
I'd like to see. What I'd like to see is what Huawei is doing. A super high resolution mono with a slightly lower resolution, color, and then a wide angle. That's what my ideal setup would be. Again, I'm not sold on the telephoto, because if you've done 2 times, what they call true zoom, but whatever, I don't know what it's called exactly, but I'm making it up. Maybe it's called something else, but it's kind of got one of those words in it, like true or perfect, pure zoom or whatever. And on the Huawei P10 Plus, because you have a 20 megapixel monochrome with a 16 megapixel, I think it's 16 or 13 color, they can use the luma information, the pixels to get you that zoom, right? And because the chroma doesn't have to be quite as accurate in order to get the detail you need. So they're basically zooming both sensors twice, and they're getting less color information, but they're still getting lots of detail. And it looks fantastic doing a quote unquote dual zoom, a 2x zoom on the P10, but that's just a pure software feature at this point. Again, it's software photography at its best. So I'd rather have that than an actual real optical zoom lens, right? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And then have the wide angle. So that's why I'm voting for large monochrome sensor, smaller color sensor, and then a wide angle. That's LG next year. Boom.
I want one more camera on there. So my ideal phone would have probably
4.
I would probably have 6, like their arachnid phone or whatever you want to call it. It would have a slow motion camera on there because I find slow motion to be really great, but I'm always taking a photo, so I miss that moment. And this has to have some super bionic processor on there to handle all these cameras at once. But it'd be great to take all these photos and all the video that you want at once. And I can't really. The one thing I can't understand with phones is why can't they allow me to flip while recording from the rear camera to the front facing camera to the rear camera again. Kind of like you're narrating something, you're showing people something.
Oh, that would be pretty cool.
You can do it on Facebook Live, so there's really no reason that they can't. There may be a blip in the software, but you can kind of edit that out.
I've never tried that. I'm wondering if some phones might support that. We need to try it out.
I really want that to happen. I haven't seen it in anything I've tested. I tried it out, and because I was in Hong Kong, as we sometimes go to Hong Kong. Actually, we
so do I. Just randomly.
Yeah. We met up in Hong Kong once, just quite randomly.
I know, it's like we ran into each other just sightseeing. It was awesome.
Yeah, and I was
like, "Hey Matt, how's it going?"
I was on a lift to the big Buddha statue. This, and they have the clear bottom in this. I forget what you call it, but like the it's like ski lift type of thing. And I am just hundreds of feet above the ground, and I want to kind of narrate this video. But I had to take chunks of video on the Samsung phone that I had. I think it was the S7 at the time. And I was like, why am I doing this? I have to stitch this all together later. It's kind of annoying. Facebook wouldn't work because the data wasn't fast enough that I had, or it would eat up my data. So it was just a stuck situation. And I was like, but Facebook Live can do this, but a Samsung, local hardware cannot. And I found that really interesting, and no one's done it so far. The other thing they need to improve with cameras is unlocking the phone while you can take a photo and then if you have your fingerprint on the fingerprint sensor, you still can't go back and flip through older photos that were.
Yeah, that's basically annoying. Isn't it?
It is.
Why hasn't Apple? I would have thought Apple would have fixed this by now.
It is. You're locked from the previous photos, but you're like, I'm here. I have to now close the phone, open it up, and unlock it just to access older photos. Because I took 2 more photos. Oh, it's one of those small annoyances that they should be able to do by now.
You know what I also want to see that I think Apple would be, or somebody like that's really into user experience could bring to the table quicker than everybody else, is have it constantly be recording video, maybe in a buffer for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
The moment it detects that you're moving the phone in such a position that you would want to record video through the sensors, it would start recording before you even double unlock, the power button to get to the camera app.
Mm-hmm.
And if you hit record at that point, it has like a 5-second buffer it already saved of video.
I could see that happening, just because...
You know what I'm saying? That way you don't miss the moment, ever. I think that we have enough memory now, and processors are fast enough, and motion detection and position detection in space of where the phone is pointed is good enough now. They could also use some sort of imaging AI to realize that the camera is pointed at something that seems to make sense to record, and then start pre-rolling. It'd be an interesting feature to have. But anyway, I want to touch, poke your brain. We talked about the V30 a little bit. You gave us a very, very brief summary of what you thought. What about the Note 8? You've played with it. What are your thoughts on that? It's a really big phone, and it's, to me, hard to justify the cost considering the Galaxy S7 8 Plus exists.
Right. I actually reviewed that phone in my review that is on TechRadar right now. You will see that I kind of tackle that issue right there. If you're going to spend $825 on a phone, you might as well spend $930. It's $105
Right.
difference.
It's
And
not a big difference.
it's not a big difference if you're already spending that amount of money. And also, the secret thing is when you go to sell that phone, it's going to be worth more money than the S8 Plus in whatever time frame that you have it, whether it's 1 or 2 years when you upgrade your phone. So little things like that do make a difference. And if you hold on to your phone over 2 years, $105 is really, what's holding you back when you're spending that much. Shouldn't be that big of an issue because you're getting features like the dual lens camera, you're getting the S Pen, and you're getting a couple other features that are just, you're getting the slightly bigger screen. That's not the big deal. It's the S Pen and the dual lens camera. The camera's better, so you might as well, if you're really deciding between the two, don't get the S8 Plus. As much as I like that 6 months ago, this is
Right.
the extra gig of RAM. Stuff like that. If you're using DeX, if you plan to use,
it's 2 gigs, right? It's 6 versus 4. But
Yes,
look,
yes.
the thing is you're right, but I also do think that people are right now saying this primarily because the Galaxy S8 Plus has dropped in price. You can get it at a reduced price already.
yes,
Whereas I think that's also going to follow through with the Note. Give the Note 2 months and 3 months, and for the holidays, it'll be less than $930, guaranteed.
yeah. The other end of my job, in addition, when I moved to New York, in addition to being the senior mobile editor, I am now also the buying guides editor. So I tell people, I give them advice on what to buy and also how to use gadgets. Like we have an iOS 11 problems page now, and people contact me. So I'm
You're
giving.
very brave.
Yes,
Because that is quite an assignment, my friend.
You would not realize how many people have different problems with iOS 11. And it's not just Apple testing it. It's that this person has this one feature enabled that no one else has enabled, so therefore it doesn't work for them. It's very interesting. But the whole scheme is buying advice, and I have to tell them if there's a certain price that's better for a phone. And yes, the story we keep running, because it happens every couple of weeks, that the S8 and the S8 Plus are 25% off on Amazon. And that is amazing. It's usually the unlocked version. That's like an international version that you can get. So it's a really good deal. So yes, if you can find a deal for the S8 Plus, then it's worth it because then there's a price difference. But that's going to happen with the Note 8 anyway in 6 months. So Samsung has good buy one, get one free deals. T-Mobile has that same thing. So there's always a scheme that you can work, especially the further out you get. If that phone's going to get closer and closer to getting replaced. If it's like 6 months, 4 months, you're going to get better and better deals.
Cool. Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, you totally nailed it. So let's see. I think we've talked about everything pretty much briefly, and it's almost time to wrap up. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Was there something you wanted to mention? Oh yeah, there's a couple of housekeeping things I want to talk about, but anything you want to talk about, any product, anything that's kind of been like, you should check that out.
I really do like my AirPods, as great as they are, or as not great as they are, as podcasting tools. That's the one thing I bought last year that I really liked. And I would definitely, if you're looking for a purchase, go with that. And just one last piece of advice for people out there. If you're buying a phone this season, because it's phone buying season, don't buy the phone that you think you want right now. People are saying, I don't want the iPhone 10. I don't need the iPhone 10. But buy the phone that you want 23 months from now. In the last month of your contract. I hate when people come to me and they say my battery life is terrible. iOS, that latest update doesn't work, or my phone is so old. It's because they bought the iPhone 7 because it was just $100 cheaper, but they hold on to it for 3 years. Well, you're buying last year's technology, so that phone is technically 4 years old by the time you're giving it up. And don't do that to yourself. Just buy the best phone that you can, and the phone that you want, 23 months from now or plus. You might hold on to it even longer. So just get the best phone you can, because an iPhone 10, the price difference between the 8 and the 10 is $2.88 a week. It's less than a cup of coffee.
I know, it's ridiculous. It's like that's the price of half a cappuccino in San Francisco, guys.
It's true.
And I spend that almost every day.
Mm-hmm.
Not a cap, but I'm a big fan of Americanos and lattes. But anyway, good advice, Matt. Thanks. Thanks. Absolutely. You're right. And I wanted to add a couple of not housekeeping, but things I want to put on people's radar. Obviously, Pixel event coming up, Mate 10 launch coming up. And then what's also super exciting is Microsoft finally sent me a Surface laptop to play with. So expect my thoughts and feelings on this device shortly. And then another thing I wanted to point out, Matt, you might have seen this. You guys all know Lewis, Unbox Therapy, great YouTuber. You should check him out. He's probably the number 1 tech YouTuber in the world these days. He, I don't watch all his videos, but every now and then YouTube says, hey, check this out. And I'm a sucker for a good YouTube show. And Lewis is a pro at that stuff. So he reviewed this 60-watt USB-C charger from this company called Energy, like inner, inside your ear, inner ear, but Energy. And it's probably a Chinese company or whatever. The cool thing is that if you're a MacBook user like me, 12-inch MacBook, you know what the size of USB-C power brick is. This thing is half the size of that, has the same wattage. And it works great with a MacBook. It works great with any USB-C phone I've thrown at it. You need a USB to USB-C cable to use it, obviously. But it's one of the smaller high wattage or smallest high wattage USB-C adapters you can buy. And as such, for travelers like us, it's awesome. So I highly recommend it. I'm not sure what the price is. I'm going to do an unboxing video for you guys because at TechCrunch Disrupt last week, I ran into the company they were exhibiting and they gave me a review unit to play with. So pretty awesome. I'll do an unboxing for you guys. I believe I actually did the unboxing already. I just have to publish it. The reason I'm bringing it up for you, Matt, specifically is that if you have an iPhone 8 or 8 Plus and eventually an iPhone 10, you can charge it much faster if you buy Apple's USB-C to Lightning cable and plug it into a high-power USB-C wall adapter. But you don't have to buy Apple's bulky, expensive 39 or 29-watt adapter. You can buy the 60-watt one for a lot less and use that with your laptop as well if you have a USB Type-C laptop. Woohoo!
Interesting.
That's it.
That's cool.
Yeah. Energy. And it basically looks like, the iPhone charger that comes in the iPhone box, but twice as long. Like, if you plug it into the wall, imagine it being twice as long, sticking out twice as much. That's the size of the thing. And it's got the front plugs, they fold back in so they don't stick out if you want. And that thing is 60 watts.
That's great for travel.
So that's my my tip of the day, I guess, for you folks out there. Matt, thanks for being on. Do you want to plug yourself? Tell people where they can read your stuff, where they can find you. There's obviously Cheddar and TechRadar, but tell everybody everything. Twitter, the whole thing.
Yeah, in addition to TechRadar, you can find me on all the social media channels, and it's at Matt Swider, so Matt and then Swider, like spider, but with a W instead of a P. So Matt Swider, and that's going to be Twitter, that's going to be Snapchat, that's going to be Instagram. So hit me all up on those, and I will take your iOS 11 questions. I will even do that. So that'll be great.
And we can obviously read your stories on TechRadar.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about these Cheddar videos you're doing with the New York Stock Exchange.
So I'm trying to get the TechRadar name out there as much as possible. Now that I'm in New York City, I'm trying to tackle that media capital that New York City has become. So Sirius XM and Cheddar, they have a daily Facebook Live show on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, which is really exciting. And we're trying to just talk about the topics just like I'm doing here and get the TechRadar name and the brand out there because I feel like we have a small team, but we're really doing we're running on all cylinders, and that's going to be great. Black Friday and Cyber Monday are going to be a big thing that I'm focusing on as well, trying to tell people, where to go and where to find those deals. That for the past 2 years on TechRadar, it's been kind of my kind of something I picked up as something I have helped out on. But now I have this expanded role of buying guides, so that's going to be a huge thing. So I will definitely guide people at the end of November on where to find those deals.
Ta-da, you heard it here first. Well, not really first, but hey, if you want to see more of Matt in person, it's video, right? I see you posting stuff that looks like it's video.
Yeah.
So
you'll see on Twitter all the time.
Yeah, so get to see more Matt in real. And for me, you know where to find me. I'm Tank Girl on Twitter, TNKGRL. That's my Twitter handle. And of course, you'll find me on my YouTube channel, Miriam Jouar. That's my full first name and last name. That's youtube.com. Lots of unboxing videos and whatever I feel like at the time in there. And finally, mobiletechpodcast.com, where this podcast lives weekly. Subscribe, tell your friends. We're on iTunes, we're on Pocket Cast, we're everywhere. And it's produced and hosted by World Podcast. Thanks, guys. And tune in for next week. I'll have another awesome guest, and we'll talk about more mobile tech. Probably a Surface laptop review maybe from me. So there you go. Thanks again, Matt.
Thank you.
And talk to you guys next week. Cheers.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.